How you guys doing?
Yeah, really well, thank you.
For both of you, thank you so much for coming in. I so appreciate it. The only reason I get to talk to you guys and the only reason Collider gets to be at the Toronto Film Festival is because we have great sponsors. I want to give a huge thank you to Nordstrom Canada for allowing me to talk to you guys. You know, sponsors are important.
Much love to Nordstrom Canada.
I'm sure they will very much appreciate that. For both of you guys, there's a million things I want to talk to you about this, but how familiar were both of you with Ned Kelly's story prior to getting the script? I know it's generic, but let's jump in with that.
Well, my dad's an Aussie. My dad's from Australia, so I'm growing up. It'd been a long time since before making the film that I'd been to Australia to see my family. But all my cousins and aunt and uncles are there, and I've spent quite a lot of time there when I was much younger. So I know the Ned Kelly history from then. But what I didn't know until kind of researching this and reading Peter Carey's book was the fact he was Irish, and that kind of like. I kind of had taken for granted the colonial history of Australia, to be frank, and that sort of world and understanding of that kind of Wild West and how that came about because of the Australia's recent colonial history. That was sort of a new understanding that came with reading Peter's book and then the factual history that went with it afterwards. But Ned Kelly is a legend I knew of through my dad, who's an Aussie.
I'd only through watching film. I'd never really done any research on him, or I hadn't read any literature on him. So I'd seen a couple of past movies. It's funny. I saw the film a little while ago, and since I watched it, it really occurred to me just how archetypal that story is. And I see that narrative played out over and over, that same story. I was watching, for instance, Animal Kingdom, and I watched it within a week of watching Kelly Gang. It's virtually the same story, and it's, I'm sure we will be asked, presumably not by you, because you're smarter than that, but why make another Ned Kelly movie?
That was never coming out of my mouth.
No, sure, I assume it wouldn't, but I think the answer to that speaks for itself. It's the same reason people watch the same film over and over again. Essential stories want to be told over and over, and people want to see those essential stories over and over.
I realized something as I'm talking to the two of you. I've talked to the two of you a lot at the Toronto Film Festival. So have you two decided to maybe you could split an apartment here and each of you have it and each have a bedroom, or am I wrong about this?
No, I just recently put it to Charlie actually that we could do that, like a sort of, Austin Powers sort of like Sims, ostentatious apartment. I think that's...
The problem is I don't think we could afford it in Toronto anymore. That's the problem. I mean, real estate's just gone crazy here, right?
Sure, but
they build and they build and they build. Maybe we could get a studio.
Yeah. Look, I'm just pointing out that as I'm sitting across from you, I'm realizing it's like the last few years I know I've spoken to you a bunch here. Yeah. I know I've spoken to you. It's like, second home.
I was trying to think about it on the plane. I think I've spent 16 months of my life in Toronto. I think that's probably what it works out at. So it's, I didn't figure out the percentage, but that's got to be, 3.5%, 4% of my life. So a piece of my heart belongs to Toronto.
Yeah, well, first of all, the city's amazing. It's my favorite film festival. They love movies, weather, everything about it. But jumping back into the movie, one of the things that's very unique is the story structure. It's like 3 chapters. And what was it like reading that in the script? I guess I'm curious, when you get the script, what was your first reaction? And then if you could talk about the structure of 3 chapters.
Well, I guess, to start with the script in general, I mean, we are both huge fans of Justin's work. I'm not just saying, but Snowtown, I think, is the most affecting cinema experience I've ever had. And so the opportunity of working with Justin and kind of knowing the sort of world of his films and his kind of not just aesthetic seems a bit surface level, but that kind of the feel of Justin's work, kind of having that in the back of my mind, then reading Sean's amazing script as well, was just so exciting. But in terms of the 3 3-act structure, it's kind of, I guess that's sort of typically like a play, and I think it's charting the change within. I guess obviously through the spine of it, you've got Ned as Ned, but it's the sort of versions of him, so to speak. Boy, man, monitor, and that sort of stages of growth, essentially, of like boy, man, and natural growth, and then sort of transcending into something unnatural, which is him grasping at kind of an identity that he has created, that he's been given, that he's latching onto, that's been applied to him. It's all of that. Like, that's what Monitor is for me. There are so many kind of references as to, it's like the Monitor lizard, the Monitor battleship. There was there's a bit in Peter Carey's book in an earlier draft of the script where, he was the ink monitor at school, and there was a kind of series of bullying experiences that happened to him then, and it was just that. So therefore, attached to that word was responsibility and a job, and the sort of ink and blood, the words, like the penmanship, everything. There's so many metaphors entwined in that word, and that, I think, that last act is sort of when he transcends as to kind of, as I say, grabbing things to apply to himself and accepting the things that are applied to him. But it's a less kind of biological growth, if you know what I mean.
Completely.
It seems like we're going through a period right now. I'm seeing it a lot where we are distancing ourselves as the filmmaking community from the very traditional classic 120-page 3-act structures, 30-page first act, 60-page second act, 30-page third act. It seems that people are... it's an interesting trend going on right now. It seems that people are dispensing with first act a lot. The first act setup, that audiences have become so smart and so savvy to storytelling and to filmmaking that a lot of the world creation and setting up is sort of, by route. Like, it's like, we get that. And so I think this seems to me like, a slightly radical transition going on in the filmmaking community. And I think this was sort of an example of it. I thought it was really... It sort of made me think a little bit of Moonlight in the structure of this. I mean, I was really surprised when I read the script, because you probably remember better than me, but was it about 40 pages with young Ned? It's a really long period of time we spend with young Ned in the screenplay. Now, I think in the editing of it, Justin certainly doesn't revert back to a classical structure, but the heavily weighted first act got truncated a little bit. But I did think they made some pretty radical moves with messing with the architecture of this thing to great effect.
I definitely have to ask. So, when you're working, I can't remember. Did you have scenes with Russell? No. Yes, that was different. But you had scenes with Russell.
Yeah.
I'm curious. What is it? Is it hard to not spend the entire day on set talking about Master and Commander?
I was playing a. We have a very contentious relationship in the film, Russell and I.
Sure.
And I just intuited that Russell's the type of dude who's going to show up and take your measure, and that's going to dictate a lot of how the experience with him goes. So I wanted to come in and try to set a precedent that, there was going to be two sides of this dynamic. And I might have overcompensated a little bit. Can I swear on your network?
100%.
So Russell, I guess, was going to do another project, and he put on a little bit of weight, and it was his first day of filming, and I'd already had the luxury of shooting a little bit, and it's kind of a contentious scene, and Justin said, "You good? Russell, you good? Everything all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And we've been improvising a lot, as I started to realize with Justin. That's the process. You improvise a little bit. So I just decided we're going to dispense with the script in this first take. And I knew what I wanted to say, or an approximation of what I wanted to say, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to speak it because my heart was pounding so hard in my chest. But I walked up on my horse, stopped. I had the first line, and I was saying, "Oh, you're back in town," or something like that. And I said, "You put on some weight, you fat cunt." And this demon appeared in his eyes for a second, and I held it, and then the humor came through, and he nodded, and and I knew I'd made a friend. It could have gone one of two ways. So that was that.
That is amazing, and it takes fucking balls to do that with Russell Crowe.
I mean, come on.
Right? I mean,
The gladiator. The commander.
listen, Master and Commander is, like they make a lot of movies and they talk about, I hope we can make like sequels and everything else. I would actually pay real money for a Master and Commander sequel. I love that movie so much. It's so good. It's so authentic and real and exciting. And
The only thing that could have made it better, if I was in it, I auditioned 3 times for that film.
oh, for real?
Yeah. It was a long process, and obviously Peter Weir and the whole thing, I was very excited. In the infancy of my career, but it was not to be.
Right. You landed on your feet. You're okay.
I'm all right.
Right, but
Right,
Right.
there you go. There you go.
right, that's great. My God, yeah. First of all, thanks for sharing that story. That's great. But for the two of you, what is it? I mean, listen, you both worked in a bunch of things, but what is it like working opposite people that you really, really respect? You know what I mean? And like that energy that comes when you get to set with great people.
You kind of like we were so blessed with the with the cast and the crew of this film and working for Justin as our director. I think in a way you've kind of just got to go with the present sort of situation in terms of it's like playing football or something, and if you get a call up for Chelsea and you're kind of. And if you were to get on the pitch and be overawed with with the players that you're playing amongst, you'd be letting the team down. So it's kind of that thing of, I think, trying to use those nerves just purely as a motivator to be a bit like, okay, how can I best serve this situation? Like, how can I just, you want to be that one that you just want to do well, basically, but not kind of worrying about ticking boxes and being sort of, worrying about if you're going to get it wrong. And I think so. I think in a way, to answer your question, it's just about kind of letting go and just being, what's the best thing that you can do in this situation is to kind of, you can appreciate it most by giving it your all. And then by the same token, Justin's process was so experimental and inventive. Like our rehearsal process, he saw the Kelly Gang as a punk band, and so we had like 4 weeks rehearsal, and us boys, and Orlando included, who was the amazing young Ned.
Sure.
He said, right, you've got a gig in Melbourne in 3 weeks in a bar. You've got to write a punk set. And so most of our rehearsals, we'd go in and we'd write punk songs, and we played in a bar in Melbourne, just as we had to come up with a name completely sort of incognito. It wasn't like the Kelly Gang sort of thing. It was just, we had our own band, and we played in a bar in Melbourne. And that kind of thing of like, it got everyone sharing stories, sharing writing, sharing ideas, sharing like openers up, like and also just listening to each other, and also having that kind of punk attitude as well. Because by week 2 we were like, we're pretty fucking good. I can't wait to play this gig. We're smashing away, and like we get in dresses every day. As we got to the production office, we put dresses on, so we get used to walking around and feeling masculine in a dress, and wearing that as our armor, and kind of going into the rooms and not being afraid to be, and I was in this kind of slightly see-through yellow dress for all the rehearsals, smashing away at this guitar, and that kind of like, I don't know, it puts your head in a different gear, so you're not thinking about who you're on set with necessarily. You're just kind of in the zone of it, and that's down to Just.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting and cool process. I actually, because I know I'm going to run out of time with you guys soon. Actually, let's switch subjects for a quick second. I love, as you can tell by my T-shirt, I love Roger Deakins. Love. I want to stress these words. I know that you, I believe you just worked with Roger. What was that process like?
It was absolutely incredible, and Roger is a true gentleman and
The
and
most
a genius.
humble guy I've ever met.
Aye, and I guess the only thing I would say is like, I mean, it was truly wonderful. But just in terms of shifting subject back, I think in terms of film, the Kelly Gang has not got much money behind it, and we're kind of here to give it as biggest push as possible. Where 1917 does have a bit more kind of like financial backing. So I kind of, if we could twist it back to Kelly Gang, that'd be amazing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry. Wow. Look, you like the way you did that?
Elegant but firm,
Right. Anytime I talk to people who work with Roger, I always like having them share stories.
Oh, yeah.
Just because, you know what I mean. And of course, what is it like watching? Can you guys watch yourself on screen, or do you like when you go to like the premiere of a movie like this? do you introduce the movie and then like immediately walk out? Or you know what I mean? Because I've heard some people just go to dinner and then they come back for the Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous game. You can have really wonderful experiences watching a film with an audience. You will have had this experience, I'm sure, dozens of times. It's remarkable how differently a film can play with different audiences on different nights. I only did this with one film, but I went and saw it 3 nights with 3 different audiences, and the experience was, categorically different every time. The Lost City of Zed.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of good.
I watched it in England at in London, in the National History Museum with the like upper crust sort of creme de la creme of English society, and it was like being at a fucking funeral. I walked out of that screening and had to walk for an hour before I could go to the after party that my entire family was waiting for me because I just was crying. I just thought, what happened? I thought I was proud of my work. I thought this was a good film. And it literally was like being at a wake, being in that, there was no participation, and I could tell people didn't like the film as they walked out. And it was for me, I was quite vulnerable at that time because King Arthur had come out and just absolutely shit the bed. And I just thought, I don't know what to do. What do you do? So yeah, I try to avoid watching films in screenings because it can, be emotionally raw
yeah, but
experience.
it's so interesting though because I have to say that like I was in Tokyo earlier this year and I was in an auditorium watching the premiere of Godzilla, the Godzilla sequel, and I was next to kids and it was a packed theater and it was silent. And that is the way they watch movies in Tokyo. They don't clap, they don't react, and it is and that's their sign of respect. But I mean, I was with little kids who were silent. I'm like, how do you do this? Man, you know what I mean? Yeah. But just to say something, Lost City of Z is fucking awesome. I mean, like...
And I liked it. I just, it was just on that night, it was a bad experience. And, you're fragile doing press, promoting a film. It's... Oh, yeah. It's fragile. You put yourself out there. You're vulnerable that week, And so, you do travel a lot. You travel and then you build up to the week and you finally go to the premiere and you're invariably tired and little emotionally oversensitive, and it can be tough. So, having said that, I'm gonna go watch Kelly Gang tomorrow because I really want to see it with an audience.
I really have to stop there and say, seriously, congrats on the movie. Thank you both so much for coming in, and I wish you guys both nothing but the best. And I also can't wait to see The Gentleman because that movie looks amazing.